Truman Burbank lives on Seahaven Island, thinking he's just an ordinary guy. But secretly, his whole life is a TV show. The island is a big fake set, and everyone around Truman is an actor. The director, Christoph, controls everything. One day, a strange thing happens. A studio light falls from the sky. Truman sees it, but the sky looks normal to him. He's curious but can't figure out what happened. Later, he hears on the radio that it was from an airplane, so he believes it. At work, Truman gets a weird feeling. He starts looking for clues about his life. He tears out pieces of a magazine and tries to call someone from Fiji, but it doesn't work. Then, his boss asks him to go to Harbor Island, but Truman is scared of the ocean, so he goes back to work. Truman's starting to realize that something isn't right about his life on Seahaven Island. Truman spends a peaceful evening at home, tending to his garden, awaiting the return of his wife, Meryl. As she arrives, her cheerful demeanor contrasts with Truman's inner turmoil. He longs for something more than the monotony of Seahaven Island. When Marlin, Truman's trusted friend, comes over, Truman shares his desire to break free from Seahaven, expressing his childhood dream of exploring Fiji, despite his teacher's discouragement in the past. Marlin, ever the supportive friend, feigns ignorance about Fiji whereabouts. That night, Truman seeks solace on the beach, where memories of his father flood his mind. He reminisces about a fateful boating trip from his childhood, where he pleaded with his father to stay at sea a bit longer. Tragically, a storm struck, claiming his father's life. As Truman reminisces, rain begins to fall, solely on him. Bewildered, he stands, and the sky opens up, drenching him completely, prompting a frantic retreat home. Truman's determination to leave Seahaven intensifies, leading to a tense conversation with Meryl about his aspirations. She rebuffs his dreams, emphasizing their financial obligations and suggesting starting a family instead. Disheartened but undeterred, Truman heads to work the next day. On his commute, Truman encounters a homeless man bearing a striking resemblance to his deceased father. Fueled by curiosity and longing, Truman attempts to approach him. However, a series of inexplicable events unfold, thwarting his efforts and spiriting the man away. Desperate for answers, Truman reaches out to his mother, hoping for validation of his suspicions. Yet, she dismisses his concerns, attributing them to wishful thinking. Truman's quest for truth and freedom propels him further down the rabbit hole of uncertainty, as the facade of his reality begins to crumble. That night, Truman heads to his basement, sorting through old stuff. He spots a red sweater with a pin that says, "How will it end?" It triggers memories of college days with Marlin. Truman had a crush on a girl named Lauren, but Meryl always seemed to be around. One day, Truman finally talks to Lauren in the library. She can't talk to him openly but agrees to go out. They sneak out together, briefly dodging the cameras. Truman and Lauren share a moment on the beach, but their privacy is interrupted when a car arrives. Lauren panics, revealing her real name as Sylvia, and tries to tell Truman about the show. Her father appears, dismisses her claims, and announces they're moving to Fiji. Truman watches them leave, puzzled. Later, he finds Sylvia's sweater. Reflecting on this, Truman pieces together magazine scraps, creating a collage of Sylvia's face, a reminder of his lost connection. The next day, Truman sets off for work, but something strange happens. The radio in his car starts broadcasting his every move, echoing remarks from unseen observers. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Truman decides to step out and walk, craving the open air. He parks and slips into a nearby building, where he's stunned to find himself in what looks like a studio filled with people on a break. Before he can grasp the situation, security escorts him out for trespassing. Confused and shaken, Truman seeks solace with Marlin at the market, hoping to share his bizarre experience. But Marlin brushes it off as Truman joking around. Determined to confide in his best friend, Truman pulls Marlin aside and hints at his plans to leave Seahaven. Returning home, Truman discovers Meryl and his mother reminiscing over old photos. They watch a reassuring film on TV, emphasizing the comfort of staying put. However, Truman's attention is drawn to their wedding photo. Upon closer inspection, he notices Meryl's crossed fingers, hinting at a deceitful marriage. The next day, Truman visits a travel agency to book a flight to Fiji, only to be told there are no available flights for a month. Undeterred, he tries to take a bus to Chicago, but it breaks down before leaving. Each setback reinforces Truman's growing suspicion that his life is not what it seems. When Meryl returns home, she finds Truman sitting in his car, visibly preoccupied. Concerned, she joins him, but he insists on silence. Suddenly, Truman astounds her by predicting the appearance of people along the street as if they were following a script. A lady on a red bike, a man with flowers, and a vintage Volkswagen Beetle with a dented fender. Alarmed by his behavior, Meryl tries to reason with him, but Truman is determined to test his theory further. Driving off with Meryl, Truman heads down the street, ignoring her pleas to return home. As they approach a rotary, a sudden traffic jam materializes. Truman feigns disappointment but loops around the rotary repeatedly until the cars vanish, confirming his suspicions. Pressing forward towards the bridge, Truman's triumph is short-lived as his fear of water forces him to stop. With determination, he closes his eyes and floors the gas pedal, coercing Meryl to take the wheel. As they race onward, Truman's elation turns to defiance, ignoring Meryl's pleas to turn back. They encounter a sign warning of forest fires, and a line of flames blocks their path, but Truman presses on. Their journey halts near a power plant, seemingly in meltdown. Men in hazmat suits approach, apologizing for the inconvenience. However, when one of them inadvertently calls Truman by his name, a detail only known to him, Truman makes a desperate attempt to flee. Chased and captured by the men, Truman's bid for freedom is thwarted as he's forcefully returned to the island, his reality unraveling before his eyes. Back at home, Meryl tries to comfort Truman with a new drink, but her overly promotional tone triggers Truman's suspicion. He questions her, prompting Meryl to blame his recent behavior. As Truman becomes increasingly frantic, Meryl brandishes a peeler defensively, demanding distance. In a moment of panic, Truman disarms her, leading to a tense confrontation. When Meryl calls out for help, Marlin conveniently appears, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Taking Truman out for a drink, Marlin attempts to reassure him, claiming ignorance of any grand conspiracy. He insists on his honesty, unaware that his words are fed to him by Christoph. Marlin then reveals the real reason for their outing. He's found the homeless man Truman saw earlier. As the figure approaches, Truman recognizes him as his father. Overwhelmed with emotion, they embrace, unaware of Christoph's orchestrations from above. Truman's reunion with his father is captured in a cinematic masterpiece by Christoph, who revels in the emotional spectacle. As Truman's father promises to make up for lost time, Truman's heart swells with happiness, oblivious to the manipulative forces at play. As the weekly TV show, True Talk, begins, Christoph takes center stage, offering explanations for the show's mysterious occurrences. He reveals the calculated decisions behind Truman's life, including the staged death of his father to instill a fear of water, preventing any desire to leave Seahaven. Bringing Truman's father back now is Christoph's attempt to pacify Truman's emotional turmoil and ensure his continued captivity on the island. Christoph addresses security measures taken to maintain Truman's illusion of reality, including an incident where a devoted fan hid in a Christmas present to gain airtime. A caller, revealed to be Sylvia, confronts Christoph, accusing him of imprisoning Truman in a false existence. Christoph defends his actions, arguing that Seahaven offers Truman a safe, idyllic life free from the hardships of the real world. He maintains that should Truman discover the truth, he's free to leave. The following day, Truman appears to have returned to normalcy, interacting with his neighbors and meeting a new coworker named Vivian, who serves as Meryl's replacement in the orchestrated plan for Truman's love life. That evening, Truman busies himself in the basement, seemingly reorganizing before settling into a makeshift bed and falling asleep. Hours pass with Truman remaining motionless, prompting Christoph's suspicion. Desperate for reassurance, Christoph orchestrates a phone call to Truman's house, followed by sending Marlin to investigate. Marlin discovers a noise recorder and a gaping hole in the basement floor, leaving Christoph at a loss. Faced with the unthinkable prospect of Truman's escape, Christoph abruptly cuts the transmission, plunging Seahaven into darkness. As the transmission cuts off, the world is thrown into a state of shock, and Christoph commands his staff to organize search parties across the island. Employing his godlike authority, Christoph commands the sun to rise, aiding in the search efforts. When terrestrial searches yield no results, Kristoff proposes a daring move, searching at sea. Miraculously, cameras spot Truman on a sailboat, defiantly navigating the open waters. With Truman out of reach, Kristoff orders an actor to retrieve him, but none of them possess the skills to operate a boat. Resorting to manipulation, Kristoff conjures a simulated storm to coerce Truman back to port. Despite the turbulent conditions, Truman stands firm, defying Kristoff's attempts to control him. Unyielding, Truman continues sailing until his boat collides with an unexpected obstacle, the dome's boundary. Realizing the truth, Truman disembarks and approaches an exit door. For the first time, Kristoff addresses Truman directly, revealing himself as the creator of Truman's world and offering him a life of comfort and security within the constructed reality. Deep in thought, Truman acknowledges the global audience with his iconic farewell, signaling his rejection of Kristoff's offer. With resolve, Truman opens the door and steps into the unknown, leaving behind the fabricated world that defined his existence. Sylvia, elated by Truman's defiance, joins the worldwide celebration as the truth of the Truman Show finale unfolds. Meanwhile, Kristoff, reconciling his role in Truman's life, removes his headset and cuts the transmission, bringing an end to the greatest show on Earth.